This video is on the square roots property. In this set of notes, we're going to solve quadratics using the square roots method. So the first thing we have to do in the square roots method is we have to isolate the x squared. So we can't solve these equations until x squared is on a side by itself. Second, we take the square root of both sides. Third, we simplify the radical if needed, and then we place the plus or minus symbol to indicate both answers. For example 1, we have x squared plus 100 equals 0. For this example, we're going to first subtract 100 from both sides, and we're going to have x squared equals a negative 100. So this correlates with our previous lesson on complex numbers, because once we take the square root, we're going to have a negative number under the radical. Okay, so this is going to be x equals plus or minus. Okay, up here, I'm going to write negative 1 times 100. Why did I do that? I want you to see the negative 1 and also see the 100 so that you will remember to take the square root of the negative 1. So once you take the square root of negative 1 and 100, your final answer will be 10i. So for this problem, x is going to equal plus or minus 10i. For example 2, I have 5x squared minus 11 equals 234. I am going to add 11 to both sides of the equation. I have 5x squared equals 245. Divide both sides by 5, and I'm left with x squared equals 49. Again, I have to isolate that radical. That radical has to be on the side by itself before I can take the square root. I take the square root of both sides. X is going to equal plus or minus 7. In working with the square roots property, I have these two answers because 7 squared will equal 49. Negative 7 squared will also equal 49. For example 3, I have 4x squared minus 30 equals 22. So I'm going to add 30 to both sides so that I can start to isolate that x squared. I have 4x squared equals 52. The next step is to divide both sides of my equation by 4, and x squared is going to equal 13. I have to take the square root of both sides, and x is going to equal plus or minus the square root of 13. We have to remember that 13 is a prime number and it cannot be simplified. For example 4, I have x squared plus 64 equals 0. I am going to subtract 64 from both sides. That's going to give me x squared equals a negative 64. I take the square root of both sides. X is going to equal plus or minus 8i because 64 is a perfect square.